It says starting. There we go. Hello, everyone. As you're coming into our webinar, just going to give a minute to let some people join us, and then we'll kind of review some housekeeping and get started.
All these people. What do they do? What do they do for us?
All right. So thank you everyone for joining our webinar. I know I can see that people are still coming in, so I'll talk for a minute. But basically, we want to welcome you. Us at DiCAN, I'm Lucy Woodward. We have a few of our DiCAN staff here. We're going to be having Kendra Abraham host our webinar and give a demonstration on Geotab's new maintenance center, some of the features and some of the ways that you can use it in your use of Geotab in your everyday. Kendra's takes care of our customer success and onboarding at DiCAN, so she's great at demoing this stuff. So just a couple of housekeeping. What I want to ask is if you have any questions, either if you could put up your hand or if you want to put something in the chat, if you feel a little shy, you don't want to talk, you could put it in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll kind of watch for it there. Kendra, as we go through, if I see a question, I'll maybe just interject. And after the webinar is over, we'll open again in case there's questions then. Feel free either way, raise your hand, unmute yourself, and then we'll send out the questions that are asked in an email follow-up with the link to the webinar today. So I think I've covered everything, and Kendra, I'm going to pass it over to you to take it away.
Great, thanks, Lucy. All right, I'll share my screen and we'll jump into this. Okay. So first and foremost, what I just want to make really clear is that Geotab's work order management system under the maintenance center is still in the beta phase. Okay, so a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is maybe not all the way there, but it is still functional. So I want to review what we can do and some of the things that are on the timeline to come up to be able to do. Okay. So if you were used to the old way that Geotab laid out their maintenance sort of section, they sort of had it broken down into 3 different groups, right? There was maintenance reminders, there was maintenance records, and then upcoming maintenance. And the 3 different screens you had to click into to sort of get the whole picture of where your maintenance was, where you were at, what was coming up, and that sort of thing. So Geotab has amalgamated all those 3 into sort of 2 different sections now. Okay, so that you get a much clearer idea of everything that's going on sort of in one space. If you had any documents, any schedules set up in the old way, you haven't lost that data. Okay, Geotab has taken that data and they've made them into work orders, which we're going to go over what those are, and mark them as completed for you. So you still have all your history from previously in this new setting. It just looks a little bit different. Okay. So if we're going to set up some maintenance, ideally where we want to start is with what's now called schedules. Schedules and reminders from the old way are the exact same thing. Okay, they've just called it something different. So if we're in the maintenance center already, so how I got there was in my left-hand navigation menu under maintenance, maintenance center, we can start in schedules. Okay, so here is where you're going to set up those schedules or reminders that are on a repeating basis. Okay, so to do a new one, you're going to go top right-hand corner and click plus schedule. Now, if you are used to the old way, they haven't even changed the look of it. It's the new, like it's called something new, but it's laid out exactly the same way as before. So you're going to give your schedule a name. Okay. We're going to say, tell Kendra she's fabulous. All right. This is what we want our service vehicles to do. I ordinarily would pick oil change, but we already have a number of oil change reminders set up, so we need something different. You're going to set your category, okay? Geotab gives some suggestions. If you've typed things in here before, I'm on Google, so it's giving me helpful suggestions. The category allows you to help you filter things out, right? So if we were looking for a specific category, we could search by that in the next screen. We're going to say this particular category is a good vibes. Okay, it's not an oil change, it's not a wet service, it's not a tire rotation, it's good vibes. You're going to tell the system when this repeats, okay? And you can select multiple things. These are not ors, these are ands. So if we want time and distance, we can choose those both. You're going to select what time you want this to repeat on. So I'm going to say, we're going to say every week we need to tell Kendra she's fabulous. And then every 10,000 kilometers, okay, we also need to tell Kendra she's fabulous. So your reminder is going to be sent out every time this, whatever vehicle you assign to this reminder meets those criteria. So it's going to send out a reminder weekly and again when whatever vehicles reach 10,000 kilometers. If we have any comments regarding this reminder, you can put them in here. And if you only wanted this this reminder to apply to a specific group, you could set that here as well. Okay. The next step to the reminder is to tell the system which vehicles apply to this schedule. Okay, so we're going to add in a number of our assets here. And we're also going to search for Kendra's Lambo. We're going to add that in here. Okay. The next important thing to do is tell the system when the last maintenance occurred. Now that maintenance relates to the schedule that you're setting up. So if you're setting up for an oil change, you need to tell the system when the last oil change occurred. In this case, we're going to say that for our service vans, we're leaving it as today. Today was the last date that the team told me I was fabulous, but maybe Kendra's Lambo was last week. Okay. We're going to click done. Now, as I adjusted my time, my odometer and my engine hours switch to reflect back at what they were when that last maintenance was done. Okay, so if you do not change the date, it populates to today, and your odometer and your engine hours are going to be pulled in from what they are right now. If you change the date, the odometer and the engine hours reflect back to whatever date you chose. Okay, you need to make sure to hit save. Okay, and then if you want somebody to be notified when this is coming due, we're going to now go to notifications. You're going to pick your notification type. Typically, this is probably going to be an email, though you do have some other options in here. You're going to pick who gets notified. Okay. And then you're going to say, when do we want someone to be notified? So many days before it's due, so many kilometers before it's due, or so many engine hours before it's due. I'm going to say 1 day or 100 kilometers before we're due. Okay. And then you click add. Down below, it's going to give you a sample of what that email is going to look like. Okay, so it's going to say device is due for the reminder, okay, in so many days, so many distance. If this information is not enough and you want your email to say something else, if you click edit message here, it allows you to select different tokens to add into that email. Okay, so you can essentially tell the system what information is important to know when someone needs to be notified for this schedule. Okay, you would then click done. And then if everything is if we like it, we're going to click save. Okay, and then we can see that our schedule is now in our list of schedules down here at the bottom, our frequency, okay. We can see that the number of assets added shows up on our far right-hand side. Okay, so we can see that there's 5 vehicles that fall under this schedule. You'll also notice in this space that there are 2 sort of default schedules that you didn't add. They're just in here automatically. This first one is the electrical systems rating insight. Now what this is, it's a preventative maintenance from Geotab. Okay, so it looks at when the electrical system rating drops to or below a 15 out of 100. Okay, when that happens, when we go to the next page, you're gonna see that there might be some vehicles that relate under this system, okay? All that's saying is that because it's at a 15 out of 100, there's a potential need to check the battery or the electrical connections of whatever vehicle is pinging this schedule, okay? There's two sort of different severities. There's a high, which means that it falls between a 5 and a 15, and there's a critical, which means it falls to a 0 to a 5, okay? Now, if we click on these, you cannot change these ratings. You cannot set who gets notified right now. In the future, they are coming up with the ability to notify somebody that this is coming due. All you can do for the moment is read up on them and turn it on or off. Okay, so if you are not finding this helpful, you can turn it off so that it removes it from your list. The other one that shows up here is oil life remaining. Okay, so similarly, this is another preventative maintenance from data tables in Geotab. Okay, what this one does is it estimates the remaining oil life based on asset-specific data and driving behavior. Okay, so it's looking at both things, and then it calculates the optimal time for an oil change. So instead of, whereas we have ours set up to be a number of different criteria, these just don't really take into account driving behavior, right? It's just saying every couple, every 1,000 kilometers or every couple months, we need to get this done. The oil life remaining is going to look at our vehicles, it's going to look at our driving behavior and say, you know what? Maybe you don't drive this vehicle in such high risk areas, it can go a little longer than maybe 5,000 kilometers. Or maybe this vehicle gets driven a lot and the driver has a heavy foot. Maybe we need to change that oil sooner rather than every 5,000 kilometers. Okay, so that's what the oil life remaining is for. And again, because it's a default one, we can't set up notifications. We can just read about it and turn it on or off. Okay, it defaults on already to on. So if you were going to adjust it, you'd be turning it off. Okay, but you can turn it back on later if you do turn it off initially. So those are schedules. That's all we need to do here. We just need to set up our schedules, whatever they may be. Okay, set our vehicles to those schedules, and then now we can start looking at our work orders and work requests and those sorts of things. So once we have these set up, we can then jump to the next page, which is work requests. So you have sort of two different ways to get here. You can either go back to Maintenance Center and go to work order management here, or you can click up here plus schedule. There's a button for work requests. That just jumps you to that page. So it gets you to the same place. Okay, so this initial page, you're going to see there's 3 tabs: requests, orders, and jobs. We're landing on requests. And what this page tells us is all of those vehicles that are coming due for our scheduled maintenance. Okay, so we can see Kendra's Lambo is due for telling Kendra that she's fabulous. Okay, we've got other vehicles in here that are coming due for oil changes. Okay, and then it also gives us a severity rating. Okay, now these severity ratings mean different things. Okay? They're pretty basic. It's nothing high tech, okay? Low is going to be down here at the bottom because right now I have my chart here filtered by severity. So it's telling me the highest at the top, the lowest at the bottom, okay? So low is just scheduled maintenance is not yet due and it's low severity, okay? Easy peasy. Medium, sort of my guys in the middle here. Scheduled maintenance is coming due within 500 kilometers or 50 engine hours or 10 days of being due. Okay, so it's hitting one of those 3 criteria. And then high is the scheduled maintenance is actually overdue. Okay. Well, there's also another severity called dynamic. We'll talk about that when we start getting into jobs and that sort of thing. But that simply means that The severity is sort of subject to change. So if you select a dynamic severity, it's going to prompt you to give a due date on those work orders, but we'll cover those when we get into there. Okay. Now, this is great if we have scheduled maintenance, but what happens if something comes up that isn't necessarily scheduled? We can't predict a breakdown. We can't predict, we can't predict everything, unfortunately. So if that happens and we need to create a manual request, we go up to the top and click plus request. You would then select your asset. We're going to say Kendra's Lambo. We're going to select the defect. Now, right now, the defect pulls from your defect lists that you have set up from your DVIRs. Okay, so that's what these lists are for me. Down the road, Geotab is working on creating work requests from engine faults as well. They're just not quite there yet, okay, but that is coming. They're also working on these DVIRs creating automatic work requests. Right now it is manual, but they're working on getting them to be automatically created. Okay, so from our asset inspections that are done, if there was an identified problem, we'd select what that problem was. Okay, let's say my windshield wiper is damaged. Okay, here's where we then set the severity. So if this is dynamic, we need to pick a date that it's due, or set the kilometers that it's due, or the engine hours due. Okay, if we select a different rating, like if this is low, it takes away sort of those options, right? So let's say this is a medium problem. We can punch in a description. This would come from the asset inspection done. So passenger wiper blade broken, say, and then we're going to add that in. Okay. Right, and here it is down here. Okay, so it's a medium problem, so it got stuck in the middle. We can see our source was the defect report, okay, versus all of our others that are scheduled. So now we've got a number of different problems, maintenance requests to be done. So now let's go ahead and schedule a work order. So we can do this a number of ways. We can either select all the vehicles that we want to create work orders for. And it's important to note that work orders are created per asset, not per maintenance. So what I mean by that is we're not going to have one work order that's going to list a number of different assets all due for an oil change. Okay, if we select all the assets due for an oil change, it's going to create one work order per each asset. Okay. When I select requests here, I get 3 new buttons that show up here. Okay, there's skip. Now skip essentially means cancel. Okay, if we skip something, what that does is it creates a work order, asks you for the reason that you're skipping this request, and then closes the work order. When it closes that work order, it's going to list all the jobs in that work order as canceled. So skipping in the work order management system, we need to think of skip as cancel. Snooze is like hitting the snooze button on your alarm, okay? It's going to hide the request from this page for a period of time, and it's going to ask you what that period of time you want. 1 day, 7 days, or 30 days, a month, okay? Once that time period reaches that threshold, it's going to bring back that request into this space, okay? And then there's plus work order. So I'm going to unclick these ones because I don't want to make work orders for them. So I'm going to click plus work order here. Okay. Now, your reference, this is just created by Geotab. So it's going to start at 0001 and go up from there. However, you can change this, okay? So if we wanted to call this something else, we can do that. You're going to pick a date that it's due. If it's today, that's fine. It can be today. Okay. It's asking you for the time as well. So we're going to say it was today at midnight. That's fine. We're going to apply that. If you're just initially creating this work order, you're not going to pick a date completed because it's not completed yet. Okay. You're going to set the status of this work order. Is it opened, assigned, in progress, on hold, completed, or canceled? Again, if we're just creating a work order, you're likely not going to use completed or canceled just yet. Are you assigning it to somebody? We could assign this one to me. Okay. Is it at a repair site? Okay. Now, this is a zone. However, it doesn't just pull in your list of zones. If you want to add a repair site, what we can do is click plus zone right before, and you can set up a zone, okay, just from an address. So, okay, so let's say my shop was where we're going to tell Kendra she's fabulous. What is our zone type? Well, it's the in-house service center. Okay, and then what's the address? Okay. And then we would add that there. And now our repair site, if you have different repair sites, you can pick which repair site it's at. This is simply to help you with reporting and tracking costs, okay? If you set this up, you can then run with your report. You can see how much it costs you to repair in-site versus if we had to send this out for work, what those cost comparisons were, okay? The reason for repair, we have a list of options here, okay, depending on what it could be. We're going to say this one's preventative maintenance. Our repair class, this one is scheduled, okay. Now the information here is getting pulled in from the GPS in your vehicle, okay. Jobs here is all the jobs, well, it's initially going to be the one that you selected. If there are more jobs relating to that same vehicle, which we know that there are for Kendra's Lambo because we just added in from the DVIR, over here we can say all pending. If we click on this, it then adds in all of the open jobs for that particular vehicle, okay? You can then get rid of them if you don't want them in this same work order. If you do, that's great. Total costs is, we're not going to populate this yet because that relates then to the work actually being done. And then notes and attachments, similarly, when someone works on this work order, they could upload information from it. So we're not going to have that information yet. So we would then go back up to the top and click save. And then when you do that, we have automatically been bounced to the next tab over, which is orders. So orders is where we're going to see all of our work orders. Okay, I can have my list here shows open ones and completed ones. Now I can filter by using my filter over here for any different status. Okay, so if I didn't want to see my completed ones and I only wanted to see open ones, I can filter for open. Okay, and then it hides all of my completed ones. Okay, so you can search for your different categories. You could also search based on groups, based on particular assets. If you had a number of work orders open, you could search for a particular vehicle. Okay, you could search by created date or any references. You could search by priority. Okay, so if you were only looking for those maybe critical or high work order ones, you could filter out by those. Okay, so the filter option is really great. Similarly, these bars up here also help you filter. Okay, so again, your groups filter, you could filter by asset, or you could filter by status. So there's a number of ways to get to the same information here. All right, so we've got our work order set up. That's great. Now we want to get working on these jobs. Okay, so we would click into the reference of our work order here. Okay. Now, let's say we were working on it and we've now completed. Well, let's do each job one at a time. Okay. If we scroll down to the jobs to see what needs to be done on this vehicle, we can click into each specific job because maybe we're not completing everything at once. Maybe we're only doing one thing at a time. So we can click into the first one. Okay, we can see the information on that particular job. Okay, we're going to set our time to be 11 a.m. Right, apply that. Okay, and of course, this is a very easy maintenance job, so we're going to say as well that it was completed at today, and maybe it only took us 5 minutes. It's a little unrealistic for most maintenance, but that's okay. We're going to apply that. Service work accomplished. For this one, we performed preventative maintenance. Select the VMRS systems code for my maintenance friends. You will likely know what that means. For me, it's like how you assign what was actually completed. Okay, so there's a number of things in here. Geotab is actually working on updating this list to include more things. So this is the starting point. Okay, you can put in a description. Whatever the case may be. Okay, now the odometer and engine hours are going to get they're grayed out here because they're going to get pulled when we mark the entire work order as completed. Okay, so they're grayed out for now. Down below is then where we mark our costs in. Okay, so at this moment, it's whole numbers only. Okay, so if our hours of labor was only half an hour, we can't do half an hour. We can do an hour. Okay, our costs for that labor, $45. If it was cents, we cannot add cents at the moment. Okay, so we're rounding up or we're rounding down, whichever way you prefer to go. There was no shipping for this job. There was no parts for this job. Because there was nothing for those, there's no taxes. Great. So down here, you will see our total cost is also grayed out because the system is doing the math for me. I don't have to do the math, it's doing the math on its own. Okay. If I had anything to attach, I can add up those or import those files to be included with this work order. Okay, so that is that job of this work order then complete. Okay, I would remember to change the job status here to this one is completed. So we're going to click save. Okay, it bumps me back to my full work order because it's not completely done yet. Okay, we can see that I now have a date here to tell me that this job has been completed on this date. If I already have this vehicle in the shop and I have the parts to replace these other ones, let's do it. Let's close these out as well. Okay, we're going to say our job status is now completed too. We started today. Maybe at 11:06. Okay. And then we completed this one today at 11:24. Sure, why not? Okay. Service work accomplished. We replace parts because this, remember, is in regards to my windshield wiper. I have no idea what that falls under. I'm going to say it's an aerodynamic device. Okay. I obviously do not do the maintenance here for our shops. Replaced wiper blade. Great. Our description. Again, the odometer reading and the engine hours are going to be pulled once we complete the work order. Okay, so that's why they're grayed out for right now. We're going to put in our costs. An hour there, $45 for our labor. Shipping was $0 because we had the parts in stock. Maybe they were $65 for a wiper blade. I hope not, but maybe. Okay, and then taxes. We'll round that down to $8 for our taxes. Okay, so then here's our total cost down below for this job. Again, if we had any files, if we wanted to import an invoice for those wiper blades, whatever the case may be, you could do that here. You don't have to. This is not mandatory. Neither is the cost mandatory. Okay, so you don't have to fill these pieces out. They're just there if you want to. We're going to scroll back up to the top, make sure we mark this job as completed. Great. We're going to save that. Okay. And then we're going to look at our work order and we're going to say, okay, well, my 2 jobs, we duplicated one. My 2 jobs are complete. Okay. So I'm going to mark this work order as completed. Our cost has now taken into account both jobs and totaled it for us. So the entire amount for this work order is $163. Any files or notes that we had attached from those jobs would be carried over to our main work order, so we'd still have those there. And then our odometer and engine hour readings is no longer grayed out, but we're going to mark this now as completed. It automatically pulls our date and time for us once we mark this as completed. The reason that is important is because our odometer reading and our engine hours reading are going to be pulled from the date we marked as completed. So that resets our schedule to this odometer reading and engine hours, okay, so that it can keep counting forward. So it's important to get the right date and time completed. You can always backdate this. So if I mark this as completed, but I actually finished a little bit earlier, you can adjust that time, okay? And it'll pull the required odometer and engine hours. Okay. Is there anything else I want to set? Right. Our repair class was scheduled. Okay. So once we've got everything filled out, we're going to hit save. Okay. Here we go. And now we can see that the work order that we just marked as completed is completed. It gives us the total amount of time that it was open, okay, which is why we set those dates within the work order. If you don't set the date and time, it'll mark it as 0 seconds. Okay, so that's just, if it's not important to you, that's totally fine. If it is, to track that, it'll track that for you. Okay. Now there's one other tab here as well. So that was within order. There is also jobs. Okay. So jobs just lets you see those various jobs that were within the work order. Okay. Now, right now it is duplicating everything. And unfortunately, the way that this works at the moment is that if you pull things from the defect list, like our wiper blade right now, it walks you through all the steps, which is why we are overrunning here. Okay, you can kind of see here that the status is completed like this one. It does have a date there as well. Okay, it's just unfortunately a little bit messy. If you need this information in a report, you can absolutely get that. Okay, there is a report tab here for standard or advanced. Okay, now if we were on this jobs page and we click the report tab, it would give us a report of our jobs. If we wanted a report of our work orders, we need to be on the orders page, clicking report, and then it'll give us a report of our work orders. Okay, and so that report is just like most other reports. Okay, it pulls in the information. We can see our reference, our groups, our due dates, the status, priority, okay, our different repair sites. Now I have my report filtered, okay, by the job close date. If you don't filter it this way, the report initially comes to you filtered by reference. So it's going to start at 0001 and work its way down to the highest number, whatever that may be. However, because I have closed work orders, because we had information from the previous system, it already had different references for me, like with those numbers. And so the reason I filtered by close date was because the numbers were just sort of all over the place, right? So they were listed 1 to 0, but our times were sort of all over the place. So you're going to probably want to filter out by the job close date or whatever other information is important to you. Maybe the job start date if that's there, okay, or the job name. Because it's in Excel, you can do whatever sort of filtering you want, okay? close that tab. I do not want to save this. Great. Now, if you have work orders that were from another system or whatever the case, and you wanted to upload them into Geotab so that everything was in one place, you can do that. We need to be on the Jobs tab, okay, and then click on Bulk Upload here. Okay, it's going to give you a template to follow, an Excel template. Okay, it looks sort of something like this. It's going to tell you what information it needs, what information is mandatory, and what information is optional. Okay, so as long as you sort of follow the layout, you can then upload it, and it'll upload those as completed work orders. So if we're uploading old jobs, the system automatically marks them as completed. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay. Within this system, there's sort of a number of ways to get to the same thing. So initially, to create a work order, we were on the Requests tab, and then we selected here. Okay. We can also create a work order if we're on the Orders page and clicking plus work order here. Okay, we would then select our vehicle. Okay. And then it's going to take us essentially to the same space. We add in the jobs, or we tell it which jobs are pending to add all those in. Okay, and then it makes that work order for us. Here is something that's really important to note. If you close out a work order, okay, before the jobs are actually complete. So let's create this. We'll put this in here. Okay, if I mark this as completed or canceled, but I didn't actually close out my jobs, if I save that. Okay. If I go back into here, okay, it's automatically marking these things as closed. So why that's important is if you have multiple jobs in a work order, but you only actually got to one of them, and then you marked the whole work order as completed, it's going to say, oh, well, they must have meant to do that. So we're going to mark all the jobs within this work order as completed, even if they're not. Okay, so you need to be really aware about completing a work order to make sure that your individual jobs are actually all complete. Okay. Save that. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is if you cancel a schedule. So we created our schedules, okay? If we go back into schedules and we say, you know what, our vehicles have all changed, or, you know, something's happening, or maybe, I don't know, Kendra's off today. We don't need the Tell Kendra She's Fabulous schedule anymore. If we click into this and we delete it, like we're going to remove it, it also then removes that job from any work orders that you've done. Okay, so if we go back to our work order that we completed that job in, which was just this one, if I click into this one, it's completely gone from my jobs here. Okay, however, it doesn't change the amount of money. It still accounts for the cost of that job if I had input that information, and it still accounts for the time of that job as well. Okay, so the item will be gone, but any information related to it will still be around. Okay, so something to keep in mind here. Now, again, this is very beta. It's very basic. It's great. It's a great place to start if you don't have anything that you like at the moment, okay? And you need something to sort of keep everything together. Geotab is working on improving this, okay? It's very basic steps right now. Like I said, they are working on pulling those engine faults in, okay? They are working on creating automatic work orders based on your DVIR. It's just not quite there yet, okay? They are working on getting those endpoint APIs together. They're not quite there yet, okay? So these are all things on the docket to be included with this new maintenance center. It's not fully there yet. So it is a great place to start. Okay, and just keep in mind that this will be changing and evolving as they make it better. Okay. Questions? Concerns? Comments?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask anything. Robert, you have your hand up. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, Kendra.
Hi.
Just out of curiosity, when you create the schedules or the requests,
Yep.
on the other end, if a driver logs into my Geotab, do they see the schedule as well?
They will eventually. Again, that is
Oh.
something that's on the docket to be viewed through the Drive app. Okay, so it would only be shown in the Drive app to your drivers. Again, it's not there yet, but it is something that they have on the docket to make that available for them.
Okay. And I guess the other question would be for reports. So if I can create like a weekly report because we have so much equipment based on what's due, I can send that to multiple users, not just one person, for example, like the email reports. Can I?
Yes, correct. So you would,
Okay.
what we would do is we would download the one initial report, and then we'd set it up as a custom report as if we were creating any other custom report in Geotab. So then in that way, we could send it to whoever we needed to send it to. We could send it to people based on their groups. If that was the way we're going, you sort of have options there. Within this space, you're only downloading it for yourself. The notification piece right now is, you can set up groups to send it to groups or being emailed out just like any other rule notification in Geotab 2. So just depending on how you want to go, report form as a custom report or just that emailed notification too.
Perfect. Thank you.
We have another, Manuel, you have your hand up. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So before you were talking about the notifications, you mentioned you can set them up by distance and time or date. So does that mean, say you run your distance and it notifies, does it also remind you at the end of the time schedule or does it reset?
No, so if you have both, it's going to notify you based on time and distance. So once you hit both, so the time will not reset. It'll base it based on the last maintenance done. So if you do your maintenance on time is a little bit tricky. So you're gonna, if you come to your scheduled kilometers first, it's actually a very good question for the time. I believe that it does reset the time, but we'll have to check in on Geotab with that one.
Because the way we do it is either it's every a certain amount of kilometers, or if it's been a certain amount of time, then we do the maintenance and then it all restarts, right?
Yeah.
That was my concern.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, you're fabulous.
Thank you. We'll check that one as done. Yeah, let me check in on Geotab with that one for you because I believe it's supposed to be an and, but time is a little bit tricky when you have an and. The engine hours and the kilometers would let you know when they were both coming due, but the time we'll have to double check.
Thank you.
We'll obviously I see you writing that down, Kendra. So when we send out our follow-up, we can either send, if we have the answer by then, the answer to that question, or we'll just follow up later on, Kendra, when you do get that. Amazing. Good questions. Anyone else have anything they want to ask? All right. If you think of something later, feel free to email us. We're always happy to help. Coming in June 18th, we have another webinar coming with one of our partners, and that is Lifesaver Mobile, about safe roads, smart fleets, and preventing distracted driving with tech. Please watch for that invite. I do see it. Something in the chat. It was Dan encouraging you. Kendra said you did a great job and everyone's fabulous. So We agree. Thank you everyone for taking your time today to be with us, and we'll be sending out information following up on this. So thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye-bye.